So I am joined today with Max Bettendorf. He has been a client of mine in the past, and we'll be going over his experience buying a home. So Max, I'm a little curious about what your kind of thoughts on why you decided to buy a house in the first place.
Well, as I got back into Oregon in the greater Portland area, I proposed to my now wife. And at the time, we were living with my parents, and that's not a great place to start a marriage and raise a family. So I needed to buy a home. And luckily, you were around to be able to help me find this home and made the process pretty easy for me.
Okay. That's awesome. And so we'll be going over kind of like the 7 steps, but the first step that I wanted to get your opinion on and kind of what your thoughts were during that process was getting pre-approved. That's kind of step number one in the whole process. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, when I first went in to go get pre-approved, it was kind of just to check out how things worked. I really, at the very initial part of buying a home, I wasn't sure when I wanted to do it, and so you had mentioned that you had a lender that would be great to work through, Dylan Bird, and when I went to go talk to Dylan Bird, just kind of to scope it out and see what it would be like and see how tricky and what information, it seemed really easy. And he didn't ask for a lot of information, a lot of stuff I could provide immediately, a lot of documents that I already had on hand or things that could come up later that we didn't need right away. So getting that process started was very simple. A lot easier than I thought it would be, which is why we kind of jumped on buying a home a few months earlier than I planned on. And then everything from there, Dylan, or any lender, our lender specifically, Dylan, just kind of held our hand through the rest of that. It made me feel like I didn't need to know everything that was going on, but everything that I wanted to know, he provided in-depth information on. And I asked a lot of questions. I now feel like a professional myself through everything that you and Dylan were able to provide me in that initial process. But yeah, actually, now that I think about it, now that I've owned this home for a few months, I think I've forgotten it all. But in the moment, I felt like a genius.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of information to hold, and there's a reason why we all have professions. And Dylan's also a fantastic lender. We have other lender partners, but Dylan is definitely wonderful, and it's always great to have a agent and a lender be able to communicate a lot. And on my side, it's super helpful. And I guess in terms of that next step, which is kind of the home search and working with a realtor, how did that go?
That part was fun. It was very fun. I mean, this is the first home that we bought. So getting to check out a bunch of open vacant homes, you see a couple and you're like, oh, is this really the kind of home that's in my market? But then you get those few golden nuggets or the diamonds in the rough that come out that make you go from we're just prospecting, looking at houses to if we don't get an offer down and get this home right now, nothing else like this will ever pop up. And that came up a couple of times. Granted, we ended up not getting the home because some other people out there have a lot more money than we do. But we also found that getting your heart set on one home is tricky. It's difficult, but another home comes around. And just like the home we're in now, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. But I'm sure if we were still on the market even today, there's 1,000 homes just like it that come up every other day. And having you as someone who's always ready to jump and go show us a home, ready to put an offer down, it made me feel very confident that no matter what house we lost or what house we put an offer on, it wasn't an all or nothing. It was this house could be, but relax. If it doesn't happen, there's another one.
Yeah. That kind of leads us into the step number three. I'm a little curious about how you felt during the time when we were kind of like, I was kind of prepping you for the offers and also like during the offer time when that was kind of out to the listing agent or seller.
Sure. Going into it, I didn't know anything about strategies, any sort of contingency plans, any way to make sure that the deal goes through for us. But it seemed like you, I don't know if I can speak for all or realtors, but you definitely seem to know these strategies and you knew how to implement them for us. So it was easy to kind of hand you the reins. You asked us what was appropriate, what we are comfortable doing, and how hard we want to go at any of these offers. And on the first offer on a very nice house, a house that even today we're kind of sad we didn't get, but happens what happens. We held back a little bit and we were like, this is the first offer we're putting down. It's a great house, but let's play it a little safer. And you were totally okay with it. You advised staying comfortable with where we wanted to go. And so putting an offer down was rewarding. We felt very empowered and obviously got beat down a little bit when someone came through and felt like nearly doubled our offer. But ultimately, when it came down to the home that we're in now, the strategies that we implemented and the counter strategies that came against us, we ended up coming out winning. And we couldn't have done it without a realtor that knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm super glad that you did find a house. And I think that is very common sentiment with a lot of first-time home buyers. They feel like they have to get that one house, but usually there is going to be some other house out there that will fit their needs. And we obviously found that house for you and Mish. Uh, so I guess with that, we were then diving into kind of the fifth step. So actually, how did the kind of timeline, or how did you feel when that offer was out? Because I know that I want to kind of dive into that emotional side of things, if that makes sense, and understand that from that perspective, so that way people can understand where you might be.
Sure. This house was the third house that we put an offer on. And reeling from the loss of the first one, we very quickly put an offer down on our second house and really weren't all that interested. So we kind of let that one go. When someone beat us, we didn't fight back. So the third house was the next opportunity. In the house that we're in now was the next opportunity that we had to put a hard strategy in place. And so it was stressful. It was stressful to know that we had been beat before. When we thought we put everything on the line, we held back a little bit. We had maybe a couple thousand more dollars that we could have put towards a home. But ultimately, whoever beat us had more money than we were comfortable putting into it. So we knew that that was an option at any moment. And knowing that we had strategies in place that made sure that the seller knew we were serious, knew that we were ready to go at any moment, and that as long as they worked with us, that we would be efficient and active buyers for this home. I think that that gave us a big upper leg. So I felt confident. I felt comfortable once the offer was down,
Mhm.
but I can't say it wasn't stressful, but it was fun. It was exciting, very stressful.
Yeah. It is definitely one of those things where I've mentioned this quite a few times before, but it's usually the biggest, buying a home is the biggest financial decision you usually make. And it's also a huge emotional one, that one too, which is also why I like to dive into the emotions of it a little bit. I guess in terms of moving on to that next step, so offer got accepted. You two were super happy. And from there, we then kind of moved into depositing the earnest money. So this is kind of the inspection period where we deposit the earnest money and then also schedule the inspections. Tell me a little bit more about how you felt during that time and kind of what happened.
Yeah, so I was very excited when the offer got accepted. But like I said before, every house that you find, there's another one just like it right around the corner. Maybe there's better options. Maybe there's 1,000 different homes. And this was a moment in time for me that I don't know if this is for all buyers, but me, I'm a stressful dude. I take every opportunity to look at every option in front of me and weigh my options. When there's only one option on the table, but there's thousands others behind a door number two, I tend to peek behind that door. And so when we needed to put the earnest money down, when we needed to schedule inspectors, when we needed to get everything ready, I was a little hesitant at first. I called you and you had to kind of talk me off a ledge to be like, this is a really good home. This is a very good value. This is a very rare find. I think you should, if you really want to step away from this home, if you really want to stay in the market, I'm happy to be there with you. But if you aren't totally sure, then let me weigh you in one direction, and that's that you've got a good home on your hands, and don't let it get away. So With that in mind, and a wife who was not as stress balled as I was, and much more excited to get into a home as fast as possible, I gave the earnest money and I set the inspection. And once those wheels started turning, nothing else really mattered. The home was ours, and we were going to make sure it happened. Granted, we had to get through the inspection first, and that inspection luckily came up all green. Couple things that could be fixed, nothing that needed immediate attention. So throwing our entire down payment and the 5,000 earnest money, having little money in our pocket afterwards, uh, I was very happy with. So we took the
Yeah.
house as is, and I would have done it either way.
Yeah. And that's one of those things when the inspection does come up. So I work specifically with Bridgetown inspections. They are fantastic. And if you want to reminisce a little bit more on their experience for you, that would be great too. But one of the things I like to kind of point out in the fact of like these inspections are just a good way to understand what's kind of going on with the house. There's always going to be things that will probably need to get fixed to certain degrees, but it's part of my job to make sure I can tell you like this is a big issue and we need to get contractors out here to really do this, or it's like this is going to be a weekend job that you can do, or you can maybe hire someone else and it's not going to be a huge deal. So just with that in mind, tell me a little bit more about like how you felt when we were doing the inspections and like when you were reviewing all that, kind of what that was like.
Yeah. When we finally got the inspection back, well, actually, I was there on site the day that inspection happened. I just popped in to see how it was going, and he was able to show me firsthand a couple of things that he found, mostly cosmetic errors, like there was a stain on the wall that didn't seem like it was mold, and there was a crack in the running board or whatever it is that could easily be replaced. Nothing of serious concern. And he looked at everything. Our inspector dug into every single corner and crevice and found every single notable detail about the entire house. Even to date, I don't think there's something that was missed. So I trust that this inspector knew what they were doing, and I have not had any issues since. So I can say that it was very good. Getting the report back, he gave a wildly over detailed documentation on everything he found. Something that I was like, I am not going to read all of this. But he color coded it in a way that I knew if it was colored green, this was fine. Everything was good. It was as I expected. If it was orange, it was a cosmetic error or minor damage that wasn't going to inhibit our living in the home. If it was red, it needed somewhat immediate attention and needed to be fixed. Something that, if we didn't take the home as is, would be something we'd ask the previous owners to fix. And our report had nothing red. A couple of orange things, like I said, but mostly greens. And I didn't need to read any further than that.
Yeah, awesome. And it's also sometimes blue. I forget which color it is, but
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I feel like it's always like that color coding of like green, red, and or sorry, green, yellow, and red, because it always reminds me of the stop or
Yeah.
cafes.
Yeah.
uh
There
I
probably
thought,
was some blues.
yeah,
I don't remember.
it's all good. That was kind of like when I got my I actually used the same services for my own home, and I was like, is it green or is it blue? Anyways, uh, one of the things that happens next is the appraisal. So we kind of got through the inspection period, and tell me what kind of happened during that time and how you felt and what that entailed.
Yeah, we bought this house in a hot market, probably hotter than the area we're in Hillsboro, Oregon, had ever seen. So when it came to appraisals on the home, we were very confident that we were going to be in a safe place. We knew that we needed to make around 30,000 within what we are offering, and it seemed very doable. My this is the turn in which my wife starts to get a little stressed out that if it doesn't appraise well, we can't afford it. And I was on the level headed side of that there's just no way it doesn't appraise. It's a great home, great location. It's going to be fine. In fact, appraised $3,000 over what we offered. So immediate equity back in our pockets. And it was a very smooth portion of the sale for me. I don't know if other house buyers get stressed out in the appraisal situation, but for me, I felt pretty confident we are going to be all right.
And one of the things to note in that as well is usually when I'm preparing an offer, I will also create a list of comps along with a video that kind of goes over everything. So that way you can always kind of refer back to that and have an informed decision before we actually make the offer. I usually do that if you have the intention of making an offer, because obviously I can't do that for every single house that
Yeah.
we see. Especially, I've had some clients where we see 11 houses in one day. I am not going to be able to CMAs for every single one of those.
Yeah.
Uh,
Setting comps would be the full-time job.
yeah. So with that, I guess, did you do any paperwork, or do you felt like um, there was just kind of like a dead space? I'm a little curious about the communication during that time,
During the appraisal,
the appraisal.
I don't remember doing any intensive paperwork during that time. I know we got some documents that we needed to sign, but for the most part, after signing so many documents on the way there, and so easily, very simple process of signing documents, the way that you guys send them over in DocuSign. At that point, I trusted everything that came through. I signed it and sent it back over, and everything seemed to work itself out. And from that point forward, after putting the earnest, after doing the inspection, things just kind of coasted to the finish line for us. And it was our turn then to kind of strategize how we're going to move out of where we were and move into the next one when that time came. Um, so that's kind of, it was from that point forward, it was pretty easy.
Awesome. So now we're moving on to step number 6, which is the closing. This is where you kind of like sign all the papers, deposit the rest of your down payment, and uh, kind of figure out all those kind of last minute details. Tell me a little bit more about that time frame and what you did and how you felt about it.
Yeah, during the closing, to get all the closing documentation, to get all the information needed by our lender, I had to go out to see our lender in person and sign what had been advertised to me as a mountain of paperwork. Now, it's a bit of an over exaggeration to say it's a mountain of paperwork, but it could easily be around 50 to 70 different sheets of paper that they needed my signature or my John Hancock on. So I signed away, and it was there was some documents within there that I wanted extra copies of and wanted to be highlighted so I could read up on later. But for the most part, it's all just legal jargon saying that you own a home, that you don't own the pipes underneath your home, and you don't own the electricity box outside your home or something of that nature. So a lot of it was kind of like, great, this is just part of the process. And I'm happy to be part of the process.
Yeah. And just to reference that, that's usually like the electric utilities. So that way they can actually give you power or give you access to the sewer line. So with that, you then also deposited a large sum of cash. How did that feel?
Well, after having pooled up this money and not really even starting the process until I knew I could afford it, and setting the parameters of what we could buy within the hold on, Siri wants to talk to me now. Setting the parameters of what we could buy based on the amount of money I had in pocket, I knew that money didn't belong to me, it belonged to the home. And so I was pretty okay relinquishing it. It was cool to have, it was nice to see, but I set barriers within my own budgeting system to know that there was a lump sum of money that I couldn't touch. And
Yeah.
so that belonged to the home. And when the home ate it up, I it was not a sad farewell. I rejoiced. It was exciting to know that I didn't have to worry about holding that money anymore, and that we were making a huge step forward in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely, you just made a great point that I want to kind of reiterate, in the sense that when you pay a down payment, you're changing an asset class. It's kind of like a exchange in a sense, where you're moving from liquid cash funds to equity, which has its own value as well. So I think that's a great thing to understand. And in terms of the last step, you got the keys and now you've been moved in. So tell me a little bit more about that process and how moving went and all that.
Getting the keys was easy. We met at the house, we got inside, and having seen the house a couple of times before, it was it felt a little different walking in now that it was mine. It wasn't just touring, it wasn't just checking up, it was kind of prospecting. What goes where, and how do we move in, and what do we do on our Sunday nights, and how do we live in this home, and how do I fix the grass? Whoever owned it before was not very nice to it, but um, all of that, it felt like looking at this home that I'd seen maybe 5 times prior with brand new eyes. It was very exciting. And when we moved in, we had a lot of family around us to help us move things over and set things up. But we also moved here from Austin, Texas. So we didn't have a lot of stuff to begin with. We came in pretty barren, and we lived a barren few weeks while we waited for furniture we ordered previously to show up on our doorstep. And now that we have it all in here, it's starting to feel like a real home. Now we got a Christmas tree in here, and it takes up way too much space, but we have the space for it.
Yeah, that's very true. And I've been over to their house afterwards, and it is very well done. Uh, Me for Michelle is a fantastic painter, and I think you already painted it, painted a couple places already, right?
Yeah, we painted the master bedroom. We made an accent wall in black. And then we painted the laundry room and the half bath that's downstairs. Those were kind of like a greenish color, and we painted them all white. And we painted, other than the accent wall, the master bedroom was kind of like a mint green, which was an odd choice, but easy enough to cover in white. And now it's looking a lot better. Still have plans to kind of do a whole paint on the inside and the outside, but we're waiting until the spring so we don't have any rain to compromise with.
That's true. And I guess in terms of now you're being a homeowner, like, what are your thoughts on being a homeowner? Like, how does it feel compared to being a renter? And yeah,
Well, our monthly dues are a lot more expensive than they were as a renter, but I feel a sense of absolute responsibility. Anything that's an issue is mine to fix. There's no one to call outside of services that can help me fix this. It's not like there's a landlord other than myself. The yard is my responsibility, and the property feels freeing. I don't have to worry about what I do inside or what I hang up on the walls, though I still haven't gone very far at hanging things up on my walls. I'm not very nice to my office here, but it's it doesn't feel too different living wise from being a renter, but there's a sense of absolute freedom in what I can do. I've mounted TVs in rentals and felt awful about, like, oh man, that's it's coming out of the damage deposit in just to make me feel like I've got a setup in this house I like. But mounting something here is like it's the only person that pays for that is going to be me, and it's only when I want to sell this place, and that's 5, 7, 10 years down the road. So
yeah,
there's a sense of long-term living that I see here than I think people see in a rental, or at least I've seen a rental before. Every time you step into one, it's short term, but here it feels more valuable.
yeah. One of the things that does come up a lot is like people believe that if there's a huge market crash, that you're going to be in trouble, and that's a bad thing to buy a home and not be able to move quite as much. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought too much about the opportunity that the market crashes and my house is worth less, because I have a sense I'm hoping when I need to buy a new home, I've made enough money that I can still hold on to this one and I can turn it into a rental. As the market and the area grows around me, selling it feels like something I want to do when I'm done making money, retired, or need it for something bigger. But my next home isn't going to be the forever home. It'll probably be another house similar to this, and I'll just keep building equity and value within my own books. So if the market does crash, uh, at least we have a home. You know, the
Yeah,
value will go up. It's done it before.
yeah. And that's just like another one of those things where if you hold on to it long enough, it will come back in value. So I guess, are there any other closing thoughts that you have, or anything else you want to let people know about?
Let's see. Well, the only part of this that I felt I needed true guidance on, because everything was pretty simple. Everything was very smooth sailing. Buying a home was laid out as a stressful, difficult situation, and I didn't feel that it was, or maybe I worried myself so much that it made it, when it actually happened, feel a lot easier. But regardless, working with you, working with Dylan, um, having the comfort to know that we can search any house, we can check any place, and you'll always be by our side, made it really easy. But the only side of it that was difficult was allowing myself to be okay with that final decision, to say that this is the home. After looking at so many, after putting a few offers down, to commit to this house was hard for me to come to grips with. But now that I have, I wouldn't have chosen any other place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Max. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully this has helped someone else along their path towards buying a home.